Hello everyone, and welcome to what is hopefully the first of many YouTube videos here on the channel. To start off with, I wanted to keep it rather simple. Something a lot of people want to see from me on streams that I don't do too often is play rapid chess, and that's exactly what I'm going to do today. So I'm just going to hop in the 10-minute pool on Lead Chess, try and talk about my thoughts in a little bit of a slower paced format, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to start off with 1d4. Tried and true, this is my best stuff, trying to play my best chess here today. Got knight f6, c4, and g6. So Grunfeld stuff for King's Indian. We'll see what happens here. It is a Grunfeld, and the Grunfeld is one of those openings where I've sort of been pretending I know what's going on for some time now. I know a few different lines, but I haven't really studied them too in depth, so we'll see here if Recall Carl Levin can point out any holes in my repertoire. I like this bishop c4 line. The idea is we're not putting this bishop on e2 because it blocks the knight. We're not putting the bishop on d3 because it interferes with the queen, and the c4 square is good enough, basically. It guards or attacks perhaps this f7 square and allows us to bring the knight out to e2 rather than f3. Why do I want to do that? Well, now after bishop g4, I can keep my knight, won't not allow black to trade off this bishop for it by playing the move f3. Of course, if black could trade off these pieces via bishop g4, then my hold on d4 would be a little bit weaker, and I might live to regret it, right? That's the whole point of the Grunfeld, to activate this bishop along these dark squares. With this knight here, though, I'm able to just solidly defend this pawn, and black is going to have to work a little bit harder to activate this bishop. Yeah, we do actually see bishop g4 in this case. Now f3 will force the bishop back. I think bishop e6 is some funny business. Okay, knight a5 I think is also fine. Usually I get this position with the pawns still on c5 and c3, and black is playing c4. But black went for a slightly different line this game. I don't actually know if this is quite correct from black. I think if you want to play like this, generally they don't trade the c-pawns. I have a pretty interesting option here to go d5, which of course hangs a rook, but I could recapture. I don't think it's good in this case because I'm not actually making a threat to take this bishop on e6, because my own bishop here would actually be left hanging. Rook b1 seems reasonable. It obviously hangs the a pawn. Rook c1 also seems pretty good. But again, it's a question of how much do I care about my c pawn in this case. And I think I actually do care. So I'm going to go queen a4. Keep it simple, keep this pawn defended, connect my rooks, bring one rook to the d file probably, and the other rook to the c file. Yeah, now I'm going to take the opportunity to put the rook on c1, over protecting the c4 square for the moment. Okay, we do see b5 come into play now, and yeah, this knight is going to land on c4, I guess. So what am I going to do about it? I'm going to go queen b4? Maybe. Feels like maybe I've played this a little bit too slowly. Maybe I have. Could go queen c2 and queen b1, but it just feels a little bit wrong, right? Feels a little bit wrong to do that. Probably for good reason too. Maybe I'm already in a bit of trouble actually. Yeah, queen b4. If bishop a2, I have rook a1. Bishop back to c4 maybe is good. It would have been nice to get d5 in, but it looks like I'm just playing a bit too slowly here. Not on the clock, but on the board. My moves are not coming with enough pace, not enough tempo. I think I'm already in a fair bit of trouble. I'm gonna go queen back to c2. I'm not happy about it though. Not happy about it at all. Pretty unhappy about it, actually. Okay, rook c8. I have to make another decision now with my queen. My plan was queen d2, and I'm just going to capture the knight when it lands on c4. I don't think I really have too much of an option. Yeah, I have to take this guy. And now the point is my queen is defending this pretty adequately, so I don't have to worry too much about my d-pawn. Well, I guess I should go here. Although rook d1 takes on e2, takes on e2, takes on c1, takes on c1, and then takes on d4. So maybe I need to play a move like d5. Maybe d5 is called for here. Could have also played the move e5, but I don't think it makes as much sense. In general, I think black is pretty happy to see this move d5 because, once again, it's all about opening up the bishop, and I'm sort of doing that for my opponent here by playing the move d5. I'm hoping, though, I'll have some time now to regroup my pieces, play rook d1, and hopefully use this d4 square for my own purposes. I think rook d1 is fine. Have to be careful about the move e6. Don't want to end up in some weird looking pin. Queen a3 was my opponent's idea, but this move feels a little bit weird. The a pawn is only so valuable, right? Now I think I want to try knight d4. The point now is if you take here, I'm getting a knight to c6, and if you take on d4, I'm going to have to contend with some serious weaknesses around your king. And Carl is considering here. Takes on a2, I can also capture and go rook a1, and I should be able to get his a pawn in return for my a pawn. Could take with the bishop first, but feels slightly wrong, right? I can play rook a1, and it's some kind of annoying pin. A lot to think about. If I'm black here, I think after queen a3 you sort of have to capture this a pawn somehow. But I'm not convinced any of the lines are very good. This is the danger you run when you sort of give up the center of the board and commit to these attacks on the flanks. If you're not careful, you can just sort of give your opponent a few too many squares. Like here, knight c6 just looks very, very powerful. Right, knight e7 is a difficult threat to stop. If you try like bishop f6 at some point, there's e5 ideas. If you go rook e8, then this knight is sort of keeping both of black's rooks from entering the game. And there's always rook a1 as well to think about. Obviously the bishop sort of covers it, but you know, the knight doesn't have to go to c6 right away. Could go rook a1 first, rook a6, follow it up with knight c6, and call it a day. Maybe my opponent could consider queen a2, bishop a2, and then if I go rook a1, actually capturing on d4. And the point would be if I take back, then there's some sort of rook c2 idea to keep this bishop defended. We see just a5 instead, and now I do think knight c6 is definitely called for. It seems to attack many things at the same time. Not sure what my opponent's plan was after knight c6. He might be trying to sacrifice something. You know, some like b4 hangs this piece though, a4 doesn't really do enough. Queen a2. Yeah, I think after knight c6, my opponent, although he did think for some time, did not find the most accurate continuation. Okay, just a4. But it does feel like this is not quite achieving enough. I'm actually thinking about taking on c4 myself now. But I think just bishop d4 is perfectly fine here. I don't see a reason why not. While I'm not exactly threatening to take on e7 because the queen defends it, this knight is actually really useful here. Number one, blocking this rook from entering, and number two, stopping queen a2 because the threat of knight e7 is there even if it's not working immediately. That's the annoying thing about these kinds of tactics, is that it's tough to really solve the problem permanently unless you just get rid of this knight somehow, which is not likely to happen. So I'm going bishop d4 because I want to take this bishop off of the weak e3 square where it was a bit loose. I also want to regain control over squares like a1 and d4 so I can use them for my pieces. Also c3 here, right? Maybe rook c3. I guess queen a2 is my opponent's idea. But if queen a2, I can actually capture and capture here. And there's still tactics going on. So rook c3, I guess, forces the move queen d6. Is that a move I'm happy about forcing? I think so, to be honest with you. I think so. So I'll go rook c3. Rook c3, maybe bishop d4. If queen d4, then queen a2. That's something to think about. It looks like it can't be correct, but, you know, I'm not one to give up these pawns so lightly. Not one to give up these pawns so lightly. Maybe bishop d4, I have just knight takes d4, but then queen c5. It's just a little awkward. What's the alternative? I'm not sure what the alternative is. I think rook c3 should be fine. Rook c3 takes on d4, queen takes d4, queen takes a2, and I think I can just live with that queen being super sidelined. I have threats of e5, d6, and they're not easy to stop. I also have threats of just playing some move like queen c5, maybe? Not entirely certain. Not entirely certain. It's one of those positions where this knight is just so good that white should have some sort of strong idea here, but I am struggling to find it. Maybe queen f2, but still just takes on d4. I'm gonna go rook c3. I'm gonna go rook c3. I've decided that queen takes a2 just cannot be a refutation. It's just against the laws of chess. And also, I still have this fallback. Okay, so this line is actually just losing. You have to take on d4 first if you wanted to take on a2. Because now bishop takes a2 is forced, and I do have knight takes e7 at the end of the day here. Of course, this is a discovery, taking advantage of the fact that this rook on c8 is now attacked twice. Not only do I win in exchange, I also take away the last defender, keeping this d pawn from becoming a queen. So this is pretty dead lost. Okay, I think taking on d4 had to be played as well, because now the bishop is going to end up pinned on the back rank. And that should be the match. That should be a match. This was a pretty tough game there. I think this queen d6 to a3 idea might have been a little bit misguided by my opponent. But aside from that, it was a very tough competition. I was thinking if I could just simplify more, but this is simple enough for me. d6, this pawn has to be captured, and that'll be the match. The bishop's pair is strong, but not quite as strong as the rook's pair. And resigns. So yeah, that was a really good game. I am going to go into the analysis board here and take a quick look at number one, the opening, and number two, where the game actually turned. Because I did think, after a while there, I did have a pretty good grip on things. Yeah, it looks like this is still very much mainline theory. And yeah, d5 is the main move. Rook c1 is also playable, giving up the a2 pawn. And yeah, that line does look familiar now that I'm looking at it. But I chose queen a4, which is the third most popular move. Apparently scores very well for black as well. A6, and then yeah, everybody just plays d5 here, because this b5 move is too strong. Here, I'm still following one game after knight c4. Let's flip on the engine. Yeah, black is just a bit better. This endgame didn't go my way, and I guess that's to be expected when, as I said in the intro here, this Grunfeld stuff is not my forte. Knight d4, and black is actually still a bit better, but only if he finds the move e6. And actually now the engine is coming back down to equality. Yeah, once again, queen a3 is just a little bit too far beside the point. Much better to bring pieces into the game, I think, than start going stuff like queen a3. a5, knight c6, yeah. And after a5, knight c6, white is much better. f5 is the best move apparently, but yeah, queen. Oh wow, queen f2 was the best move here. Yeah, queen f2 would have been good. Bishop d4 apparently gives away a lot of the advantage. And then here, rook c3 also gives away a lot of the advantage. Should have captured here on g7 and actually gone knight b4. That's really interesting. Just playing to trap the queen almost. Yeah, after this, bishop takes d4, and then queen d6 would have been best for black. But then here, obviously, this just hangs a tactic, and the game's over. So, really interesting game there. A lot more back and forth than I expected. Queen a3 actually wasn't the worst move of all time, but white isn't too much worse. one of those situations, I think, where, just by virtue of having the white pieces and moving first, it's tough to be that much worse out of the opening when you have such a big center. But, black definitely put up a strong fight there until eventually hanging that unfortunate tactic. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this rapid game. Let me know if this is the type of thing you would want to see on the YouTube channel, because I kind of don't want to do what I'm doing all the time for St. Louis, and I don't want to do what I do on my Twitch stream already. I feel like that would just be a bit redundant. And so this is something new that I don't often do. Let me know what you thought, and I guess subscribe for more. I don't know. I'm a real YouTuber now, telling people to subscribe to me. All right. Thank you. Goodbye.